The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the McGrath Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport podcast. My name is Jack McCarran of the Southern Star and I'm joined by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. Before we kick things off, I'd just like to give a gentle reminder to our listeners and viewers to please rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose a credit union, choose local, choose community. The Allianz National Football League gets underway this weekend with John Cleary's Cork side getting their campaign up and running on Sunday when they welcome Colm Meath to Pairc Ui Chaoimh at 3 p.m. After picking up some early season silverware by winning the McGrath Cup with the defeat of Limerick last Friday night, Cleary will be hoping the Rebels can carry their promising pre-season form into Sunday's game. On today's podcast, we'll be joined by our analysis dream team of ex-Cork footballers, Micheál, Haulie O'Sullivan and Diarmuid Duggan to preview Sunday's game and the season ahead. But before, we're going to bring you up to speed with some of the big stories making the headlines in West Cork sport over the last week or so. And starting with the news that the Ireland Six Nations squad will have a distinctly West Cork flavour this season following Andy Farrell's announcement last week. Skibbereen's Gavin Coombs and Inishannon's Jack Crowley have both been selected, and Kieran, there's every chance both will get a share of game time over the course of the 5 matches.
That's the hope that we all share, Jack, that we'll see Gavin and Jack line up for Ireland in the Six Nations. That's kicking off the weekend after this, so it's not too far away at all. So Andy Farrell named his 37-man squad last week, and probably no surprise that both Jack and Gavin have made the cut. Think back to the autumn internationals where Jack Crowley made his debut against Fiji and then started the game against Australia, and he did quite well. I think the big surprise in the Six Nations squad was that there was no room for Joey Carberry. But even though there's no room for Carberry, that's probably, well, it is good news for Jack Crowley. So every cloud and all that, because there's 3 out-halves named. You've Johnny Sexton, Crowley, and you've Ross Byrne as well. And I see when Johnny Sexton was at the Six Nations launch earlier this week, he was saying that he's fit and ready to go from the start of the Six Nations. So whatever minutes Jack Crowley gets will be, I think, just good for him, good for experience. And it's all about getting into that squad for the World Cup later in the year. Gavin, then is a bit of a different story. He had his 2 appearances for Ireland in the summer of 2021. Then he was in the Ireland A squad and the tour to New Zealand last summer. But what worked against him, he was on that Ireland A team that lost to New Zealand in the RDS in November, and that was a poor night for nearly every player that played. New Zealand won pretty handy. And after that, Gavin was released back to Munster, so he didn't feature in the panels or the squads against Fiji and against Australia. But since then, his form has been exceptional for Munster. He really has stepped it up. And Munster head coach Graham Rowntree said last week that being released back to Munster from the Ireland setup in November was to kick up the backside that Gavin needed. And just look at his performances since then. The weekend before last, 2 tries against Northampton, even against Toulouse last weekend, he was quite impressive as well. So he's in good form. So hopefully we'll see Gavin get his 2 cap tally in the Six Nations. But it's good. I think it's a good reflection of West Cork rugby where we are right now. And look back to the Munster game last weekend against Toulouse. John Hodnett from Roscarbery had a superb game with Jack Crowley from Inishannon starting, Gavin Coombs from Skibbereen. And we also had Josh Wycherley come on as well. So I think that's a good reflection of where West Cork rugby is right now.
Yeah, absolutely. A healthy West Cork contingent in the Munster team and hopefully a healthy West Cork contingent in the Ireland team over the course of the Six Nations. As Kieran said, that starts on Saturday week, and we'll obviously keep all of you abreast of the West Cork involvement throughout the course of the championship The Cork ladies, Kieran, made a winning start to their Little National League campaign last weekend, overcoming Mayo at the Connacht GAA Centre of Excellence. Dunmanway's Melissa Duggan was among the goal scorers in a 2-11 to 12-point win. And Kieran, it's a new look Cork side. What are we to take from this opening performance?
First off, Cork got a win away from home, which is brilliant. It's a great start to the league, so there's points on the board. We had Shane Ronayne, the Cork manager, on the podcast last week, and he was saying priority number one is avoid relegation. And as negative as that sounded, he's right in a sense, because this is a new look Cork team. Since we recorded the podcast last week where we chatted with Orla Finn, who retired, Orla Farmer has also announced that she's stepping back from inter-county football. So Cork have also lost Martine O'Brien, who's retired. Haulie O'Sullivan from Allianz has stepped back. Emer Skelly has stepped back from the team. So there are a couple of starters there straight away. The likes of Roisin Phelan isn't back in just yet. Ciara O'Sullivan and Darren O'Sullivan aren't back in. So a lot of those stalwarts that have been there the last decade or so are not in that squad or team right now. I think for the team that started against Mayo, only 6 of the Cork team that started against Mayo in last season's All-Ireland quarter-final defeat started last Sunday. So that shows you the turnover. And the word transition has been used, and it very, very much is that. And there was last Sunday, there was a good few debuts for Cork. I'm looking here: Aoife Healy, Abigail Ring, Saba Godric, Orla Cahalan, Anna Ryan. They're all made their senior debuts for Cork. So that shows that Shane Ronayne is giving youth its fling. But the big thing is they got the result. They got the win. Katie Quirk came off the bench and she got the late goal. That rubber stamped the victory, sends Cork into their game against Waterford this weekend with points on the board. If Cork can beat Waterford this weekend, that's 2 wins from 2, and it really is a really solid start to the league. And it almost straight away it negates that the fear of relegation if you have 4 points on the board this early. So good solid start for the Cork ladies. But I think a word of caution: we need to be patient too, because there is such a turnover of players, and there is so many young players being given their chance. Not to expect too much of this young Cork team during the league. Just be patient, let them find their feet, let Ronayne build a strong squad for the championship, let the experienced players come back into that squad and bulk it up as we move towards the summer. But a good start.
Kieran, one of the names you mentioned in the Cork team at the weekend will be very familiar to followers of West Cork football, and that is Cahalan. Orla Cahalan of the Cahalan dynasty. Obviously, she's not involved with the Castlehaven ladies, but she's from the same family of the 3 brothers who play for Castlehaven. Also, their father, Niall, Cork and Castlehaven legend as well. And am I right in saying she's the 5th member of the Cahalan clan to play intercounty senior GAA?
I think it's incredible. Like the Cahalans, are they the most sporting family? I've always heard of this, Jack. What's the most sporting family or set of siblings in West Cork? And I know that the Cahalans, the Maeve and Orla played their football with Éire Óg, and then Maeve, Orla and Grania played their camogie with St. Finbarrs, and the lads played with St. Finbarrs, but also football with Castlehaven. But we're going to take them to West Cork for this experiment. But what is the most sporting set of siblings in West Cork? We've the O'Donovan brothers, we've the McCarthy's, we've the Healy sisters, we've the Wycherley brothers, we've the Coombs cousins, and with the Coombs cousins, you've Gillian and Gavin, who are brother and sister, and Liam, their first cousin. The O'Driscolls from Cork, 3 of them played in the same Cork team, and there's much more than that as well. So I'd be very interested for our listeners just to tag us on Twitter or pop us an email, because we might delve into more in the future to find the most sporting siblings in West Cork, because we are blessed here at the moment. But back to the Cahalans, yeah. Orla came on in the 56th minute against Mayo, so that was her senior intercounty football debut. She made her senior intercounty camogie debut last summer for Cork. I think it was either against Clare or Tipperary, and she actually came off the bench in the All-Ireland final, lost to Kilkenny. And her sister Maeve is also on that team. So what we've Maeve, who plays with the Cork football and camogie team, and we've Orla, who plays with the Cork football and camogie team. So 2 dual stars right there who are sisters. Damien Cahalan formerly played with the Cork footballers and is with the Cork hurlers the last number of years. Conor Cahalan is in with the Cork hurlers, and Jack Cahalan, youngest of the lads. He made his Cork football debut in the qualifiers against Limerick last summer, and he was an underage star in both Cork hurling and football. So that's incredible. It's an incredible record. But look at who their dad is. Niall Cahalane, a couple of All-Stars there, a couple of All-Ireland medals. He's legend goes before him, one of the greats of Cork football, one of the greats of Castlehaven. But still, even though it's in the DNA, it's in the blood, it's still some going from that family to do what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. A very impressive bloodline there from Castlehaven and beyond. Finally, this week, Kieran, Kinsale golfer John Murphy was the latest recipient of a West Cork Sports Star monthly award, and the first since the passing of the late great Padraig Palmer. And this was a particularly fitting and poignant awards event at the Celtic Cross last week, attended by your good self.
Yeah, I wrote in the last week's Southern Star. It was a monthly presentation like none other. So, like I said, this is the first time we got together for an award presentation since Padraig passed. And this was an award from 2022 for Kinsale golf for John Murphy. And it's just through logistics that we didn't get a chance to present the award till now. But it was so fitting that it was John who was the recipient of the first award since Padraig passed, because there's a family connection between John Murphy and Padraig Palmer, and we spoke about that in this week's last week's Southern Star. That story is actually up online now for people to check out, to learn about that family connection. But it was very intimate. It was a small gathering. Like I said, it was like no other Sports Star presentation before. We literally sat around two tables. There was 9 of us there, the Murphy family and us from the awards, and it became a chat about Padraig. Stories about him were shared, tales about him, a lot of laughing, a lot of reminiscing about his development and what he brought to the awards, and just it was a really nice get together. But it was so fitting that it was John Murphy, because John was telling me that how proud he was when he was younger and growing up to say that he was relation to Padraig Palmer. Whenever he heard him on the radio, he used to say, like, I'm related to that, I'm related to Padraig. So there was a very strong connection there. And Padraig was a great supporter of John Murphy as well. I know we have the John Murphy Tracker Twitter page, but Padraig was actually a John Murphy tracker as well, because whenever John was in action, you just had to check Padraig Palmer's Twitter and you could see how he was almost round by round what he was doing and how he was going. And John said as well that Padraig was just such a great supporter of him too. So everyone saw that, everyone felt it. So it was just a really nice, intimate gathering. And it was really nice to chat about Padraig too. And just on John Murphy, just for the context, he won this award off the back of earning his DP World Tour card for 2023. So it's onwards and upwards for John Murphy. He flew out to Dubai last week and to continue his preparation ahead of the big year. So the very best of luck to him there. But yeah, it was just nice, Jack, to get together and just chat about Padraig. And as you'd imagine, there was a lot of laughing and a lot of tales and a lot of good memories about the man.
Yeah, absolutely. An absolute fitting tribute to the man that the first award winner since his passing was, as you say, someone who's connected to his family in golfer John Murphy. We're going to take a quick break now, but coming up next, we'll be joined by our analysis dream team of Micheál, Haulie O'Sullivan and Diarmuid Duggan.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
There were bonfires lit across the Rebel County last Friday night as the Cork senior footballers produced a dominant display to lift the illustrious McGrath Cup with victory over Limerick, and delivered a first piece of silverware of the John Cleary era. Okay, Kieran, I might be getting a bit ahead of myself with that introduction, but nonetheless, a good start to Cork's footballing season, some pre-season silverware and a bit of momentum to carry into Sunday's opening league encounter against Meath. In a few moments, we're going to hear from our analysis dream team of Micheál, Haulie O'Sullivan and Diarmuid Duggan. But first, Kieran, give me your own thoughts on the promising start to John Cleary's first full season in charge with victory in the McGrath Cup.
And I was driving home from Mallow last Friday night. I went through the town, so I actually missed the bonfires. But I heard they were 25 foot high all the way home. As the Cork footballers made that trip home. But no, it's a good start to the season for the Cork footballers. I think the context is it's only the McGrath Cup, but still Cork have put 3 wins back to back to back. Like you use that word momentum. And that's the word John Cleary used after the win against Kerry in the opening round. So the Cork footballers, what he wants them to do is build momentum. And that's exactly what they had went into the opener against Meath this weekend. So they've done everything that you could ask of them so far. They've won every game. They played some good football. They've tried out 31 players in the McGrath Cup. There's already the look of a settled team there, as a settled squad. So you could pick almost 10 of the starting 15 already. I think heading into Sunday's game. So there was some impressive performances, and it's just all gearing up towards the league. But this is where we can really start to judge this Cork team. They've Meath at home, 1:30 p.m. Pairc Ui Chaoimh this Sunday. That's their Division 2 opener. And it's now we get a real sense of where Cork team is, because in some ways the McGrath Cup was like a phony war, because Kerry were missing so many players, Clare were down a couple of players. The final against Limerick, even though it wasn't a great game, Cork still put up 19 points, and they still had more than enough to beat Limerick, who are also a Division 2 team that Cork will meet in round 4 in February. So I think it's so far so good, but I'm just looking forward to see what the Cork footballers can do on Sunday. Can they carry that form in against a team like Meath? Can they get points on the board? Because after that, they're away to Kildare on February 5th, then they're home to Dublin on February 19th. So 3 Leinster teams to open the league, 3 tough games. So I think after that Dublin game, we could have a real good chat of just seeing where Cork are right now. But I'm not sure was it Haulie O'Sullivan in last week's Star, or someone said to me, like, for this year, if Cork can win more games than they lose, that's progress. I think the big thing here is let's not put too much expectation on this Cork team at all. If Cork can finish in the top half of the league and get through to the latter stages of the group stages of the Sam Maguire or the knockout stages there, I think that would be a good year. But almost with the Cork ladies, just let's not expect too much. This is John Cleary's first year in charge. They're building something, but just let them, I suppose, we'll give them a chance to see what they can build. But the real tests do start now.
Okay, well, it's been a few months since we've heard from West Cork's answer to Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, so let's not waste any more time. What? Say that again.
Who's who?
Who's who?
Who's who? Yeah.
Well, let's let the public decide. Let's hear now from ex-Cork footballers Micheál, Haulie O'Sullivan, and Diarmuid Duggan.
Been a very positive McGrath Cup, Haulie, for Cork. 3 wins from 3 games, and the first piece of silverware for the Cork senior footballers since 2018. So, have you been pleased with what you've seen from Cork in the McGrath Cup?
I definitely have. Even from the off against Kerry, you could see that there was a different type of steel to the team. They obviously had a very good pre-season. They're definitely a bigger, stronger, faster outfit than they were last year. I suppose along with that, some of the fellas who were injured last year, important players like Sean Meehan and Dan Lomani didn't commit last year. You know, they're central players now and they're playing very well at full back and centre back. And along with that, then you have the likes of Brian O'Driscoll and Dean and Tom Clancy, all these boys who had huge experience and physicality to the team coming back in. And look, then you have the likes of Corbett and Chris Jones, who are showing form and playing well and look like they're going to fit in and look like they're up to the level. So look, it all seems very positive, and they seem to be showing very good attitude.
Diarmuid, after the Kerry game, when we were talking to John Cleary, he mentioned the word momentum, and he wanted Cork to build momentum this season. So now we're after 3 wins, beat Kerry, beat Clare, and beat Limerick. So do Cork have momentum now heading into that league opener against Meath on Sunday?
Yeah, I think John couldn't have asked for a better run-in, to be honest. You know, I suppose every team, you know, when they go into these pre-season competitions, they're all looking for something different out of it. For Cork, as John said, it was momentum was their number 1 priority, because they made a certain amount of progress last year, and it was important to keep building on that. So, you know, that they're improving each time they go out. And, you know, they definitely were, as Haulie said, they look stronger. They look very organised. They look like they're working hard. And, you know, he's bound to be very happy, you know, because they definitely had a lot of momentum for sure. Yeah.
Haulie, I'm going to be David's advocate here and say it's only the McGrath Cup.
It is only the McGrath Cup, but look, you know, this new management, John Cleary and co, they needed to get off the ground running. You know, you saw what happened with Kerry last year. Jack O'Connor put out his, I'd say 11 or 12 of his team that started in the All-Ireland final for the McGrath Cup in the entire league. He was only looking for 2 or 3. I'd say Cork are nearly taking that as a template. You know, the main players are there all the time, and you know, it's hugely positive. You know, winning the McGrath Cup for the first time since 2018, especially going into 3 very tough league games, what would have been Division 1 teams in the past. You know, we'll really know where Cork are post the Dublin game. You know, that will give us an idea of where we're going this year.
Even there, but even it's so early in the year, like I said, it's just the McGrath Cup, for want of a better phrase. But already there seems to be a settled feel to this Cork squad. Like, touch wood, the injury list has definitely subsided. Like, it was cruel last year. It wasn't even funny how many Cork fellas were on the sideline. But it looks far more settled now. I think there were 17 or 18 players who played in the 3 McGrath Cup games. That's going to help Cork too this year. Like, there's a settled team there. John Cleary has his management team in. Fellas are a year older, a year wiser. So you'd be hoping that Cork can kick on from the progress that they showed in the latter half of last season.
Definitely, and like Haulie listed a good few players there that have either come back or are new to the panel as well. And like, all of a sudden, like, you've depth in your squad, so you know you can afford 3 or 4 injuries. And I think we got some injuries last year, and like, you could clearly see the squad was lacking depth, and it showed then when it came to crunch games. But definitely, like, you know, we say even the 15 that started against Limerick the last day, you had a number of players there that you could add to it, such as, you know, Colm, Corbett. You know, there's several players that will definitely add to it. You know, so from John's point of view, I'm sure like he's going to be very, very happy at this stage of the year. And as you said, like it does come with a caveat, I suppose, because teams are at different stages of their fitness levels and all that. Cork definitely look like they're at a reasonably good level already, but it was important for them to come out of the traps kind of good and strong, because, as you said at the start, momentum is massively important to this Cork team. You know, they've had so many setbacks over the years and so many false dawns. When you think they're making progress, they suddenly go backwards. So, you know, their temperament is probably fragile from taking years of beatings and things like that. So, like, you can't underestimate momentum. And as you said, your question at the outset, like, a big panel is definitely going to help that, because they can afford now a couple of injuries, you know, and it won't have the effect on them that it might have had in other years.
Just on that for a second, Diarmuid, and you just mentioned it there, that I suppose the mentality of this squad could have been fragile over the last couple of years. After the game against Limerick on Friday night in Mallow, John Cleary said this Cork team needed a couple of wins together. And that's almost to exactly the point that you said there, for them to get that feel of winning games, winning back-to-back games, winning. I think a Cork team winning 3 games in a row for the first time in a couple of years. So, like, that's all important for this team, because it is very much a new group still.
It is, yeah. And like, they look like a team who are buying into everything that John is saying, because on the field they look, you know, they're very workmanlike. They work incredibly hard, from the forwards coming back immediately to then bursting out of defence and transitioning really, really quickly, you know. So they're a team playing with a purpose now, you know, definitely. So, you know, any kind of a couple of wins at all are going to add to that massively, because, you know, when you go back training on a Monday or Tuesday night after a weekend game, you know, there's going to be a step in the spring of everyone, or spring in the step of everyone, you know, and like you know, it's no cliche that winning is a habit, and it certainly is. Like, and this team in particular needed that, because they haven't had that run with, you could probably say, 6 or 7 years now at this stage, you know, so it's massively important to them.
I would ask you, Haulie, about 2 of the players that have come back onto the Cork panel this year, because you worked with the Carbery senior footballers last year. So you got to see Ty McCorrick's, Brian O'Driscoll and Bantry Blues, Rory Dean up close and personal in Carbery colours last year. So what can they bring to the Cork team this year?
Well, I think looking at them now, they both had unfinished business on their minds when they were playing with Carbery, because you couldn't fault their performances in any one of the games against Carbery last year, and they had further steps, let's say, in their minds, or they were in the hope of further steps. You know, Rory Dean was probably thinking that maybe his chance was gone. Bantry got relegated. He came in with Carbery, played very, very well, was very, very committed. Same with Brian O'Driscoll, still only, 28, I think, this year. Probably felt, the carpeting was his chance to put himself on the platform, and he did that. He finished up with 127. I think he was one of the top scorers and played brilliant football and deserved his recall, and so did Dino, in fairness. And look, I think the way Brian O'Driscoll is going at the moment, he's had 3 fantastic games. He's bringing a different kind of an aspect to Cork's play, which they were missing, which was, they were short and they were running the ball hard and they were afraid to put the ball in on top of the D. And like when they turned it over the last night, there was 4 or 5 different occasions where Brian O'Driscoll was involved, and there was long, fast, accurate ball delivered into the forward. And a couple of times to Brian Hurley, John O'Rourke towards the end, and that mixes up the game, adds an extra notch of speed to the game, and it'll definitely improve Cork.
Just on the Cork inside line, Diarmuid, Brian Hurley's been in great form the last couple of games. You've seen Stephen Sherlock come in the last 2 games, post big scores. We had Chris Jones as well. He's doing quite well. We've had Conor Corbett in the first game. So that Cork inside line looks quite dangerous. And we still have Cahill or Mahoney to kind of factor in as well. So all of a sudden, we have huge competition for places in that inside line. And that can only be good for this Cork team.
Definitely. But I suppose, it's been for years we know that the ability of the inside forwards is so much dependent on the speed of the ball coming in, and I think that's probably the difference that we've seen in these 3 games is the speed of transition from defence to attack. For the last number of years, Cork were very laborious, going sideways, without ever having intent to go forwards, but now they're constantly probing, and I think the likes of Powter, even at centre forward, is suddenly adding that pace that he can break a tackle and suddenly things open up. Or as Haulie mentioned there, we have the ability, we have players like Brian O'Driscoll or different guys now who can kick the ball and transition that way as well, so the ball is definitely going in much quicker, and you can see the rewards of that and the way the scores that Brian Hurley is getting, and a lot of them are kind of from that transition type ball, when it is moved quickly, when they turn over and an opposition attack, when they move it quickly. So it's definitely a huge factor. I suppose the one thing you would say on those inside forwards is none of them are massively big men that, a lot of teams do have at least 1 or 2 men inside there that can win their own ball. And obviously the likes of Brian Hayes would have been a huge addition if he had been available to us, but unfortunately he's gone to the hurlers. But, definitely at the moment, the inside forwards are going very well, and added to that, those couple of those couple of guys that you mentioned as well, that could be added to the panel would make a big difference as well.
Haulie, what are your thoughts on Sean Powter at centre forward? Like, he's such an important player for Cork wherever he plays, but he's been deployed at centre forward in the last couple of games. Do you think we're going to see him there for the rest of the year, or are we going to see him come back into the half-back line?
And I saw him there against Kerry, and I saw him there against Limerick. And look, he's been one of Cork's marquee players when Cork were going badly. Let's say himself and Ian Maguire around the middle, they were the best known two, if you know what I mean. So like he does draw attention, and he is man marked. And that day against Kerry, Tadhg Morley was centre back. No, Tadhg Morley didn't show huge interest, but we all saw Tadhg Morley sitting back on the top of the D all year last year, covering his full back line and letting the centre forward off. But Kerry must have felt that they wanted to mark Powter or had to mark Powter. And that big gap behind Tadhg Morley was there all day, and there was numerous goal chances and goals created out of that big space opening up. Against Limerick the last night, he wasn't, he wasn't in the eye as much as he was against Kerry. He was only intermittently in the game, but he still opens it because he has to be marked. The centre back is there. The centre back is going to have to push him, or else the midfielder is going to have to drop back, so the extra man is created. So like he's still your talisman. If he gets injured, it'll be a huge blow. Oppositions fear him, Kerry fear him. It's important that he stays fit all the way through the league.
I need to get your thoughts too on the Cork midfield pairing of Ian Maguire and Colm O'Callaghan. Colm's played 3 games. Ian Maguire started the game against Limerick. He had a calf strain, so Cork didn't want to take any risks with him. It's just so noticeable that Cleary has gone with his preferred midfield pairing from the very start. He obviously wants Maguire and O'Callaghan in there. So have you been impressed by what you've seen from them, especially O'Callaghan? 2-4 against Kerry, 2-5 from the 3 games. So he's added shooting, added scoring to his repertoire.
And I suppose more positively on top of that, Maguire didn't play against Limerick, and you didn't look out of place still. Do you know what I mean? We were so dependent on him before. But Colm O'Callaghan definitely looks a far, far fitter player than he was last year. Grant, he's physically very powerful, but he looks like he's shed weight and he's covering the ground far better than what he was covering it. And that was, the mark of that was against Kerry. He set his stall out with what he scored that night, but he was very aggressive and very strong in the tackle and very strong at breaking the tackle. And the good thing about it as well, from the goalkeeper's point of view, it was Micheál Martin or Chris Kelly. When they went long, he was winning kickouts independently, and we didn't have that last year. Or he wasn't doing that last year. So look, definitely a positive. It's early in the year. Again, we'd be hoping he'll stay fit and keep developing the way he's developing, but there are bigger tests ahead for both of those guys in the middle, like we know what McGrath can do. McGrath will run up and down the pitch all day. He needed a partner. We'll be hoping that Colm O'Callaghan will be that partner for a while, let's say.
So Diarmuid, Division 2 of the league throws in on Sunday, 1:30 p.m. Pairc Ui Cork at home to Meath. And just a quick look at the games after that. Cork are then away to Kildare, home to Dublin, home to Limerick, away to Clare, away to Louth, and at home to Derry. So it's almost fair to say that the three of the toughest games are coming up at the start: Meath, Kildare, and Dublin. But look at as a whole first. What would a good league campaign be for this Cork team?
I think a good, obviously out of 8 teams, I think if they got a 3rd place finish, it would be excellent, because you'll probably see Dublin will finish number 1. 2nd place will probably be Derry, you'd imagine, and then it could be a fight between Cork and Kildare maybe for 3rd place. And I think that would be, if they were able to put themselves in position, I think Derry's their last game, isn't it? So if they were able to put themselves in a position that they had something to fight for in the last day, then I think it would be a very, very successful league, So in terms of promotion, it's highly unlikely, I think. Dublin will probably win virtually every game, you'd imagine. They might lose one maybe. And as I say, I think Derry look a very, very strong side, particularly what they did to Tyrone there last week as well, and building on last year. So I think a 3rd place finish would be massive progress, considering the quality of teams that are in that division.
Haulie, what do you want to see from Cork in the league?
Well, look, I'd have been saying, that if you won the McGrath Cup and finished mid-table in the 2nd division, you'd have been going well. But as I said earlier, I think Cork will beat Meath. If they could get a result against Kildare away, that's going to be a tough test. And you can imagine, if you were in position with 2 wins, having won the McGrath Cup, by the time the Dubs come to town, you're going to be generating a following at that stage, and there's going to be more momentum behind the team. So look, you just don't know, because you see in Division 1 and Division 2 isn't much different. It's highly competitive, and on a given day, any one of those top 4 or 5 teams that Diarmuid named there, any one of them can take the other one. Do you know what I mean? Depending on how far advanced they are in their fitness levels and their training program and all the rest of it. And look, with Dublin, are they going to use the league to experiment and try new players, or are they going to have that backbone of their team there where they're setting their stall out to basically take the All-Ireland back off Kerry? It depends what they bring to town, and it depends what way the early results go. Because if you got the 2 early results, you have the Clare and you have, I think, is it Louth there as well? Am I right?
Yeah, Louth there, Louth, the second last game, yeah, away to Louth.
Yeah, and are Limerick still there?
Limerick, yeah, Cork are home to Limerick in the 4th game.
Yeah, so look, I suppose, it's easy to say, but they're kind of fallback games. You'll be happy if the first 2 or 3 went well, that the way Cork played in the McGrath Cup, they should be over those teams, and you'll be putting yourself in a savage position then come the last couple of games.
In the last couple of years, we've been stung by Cork football teams with reasons for optimism, and then all of a sudden they prove to be false dawns. But do you sense that there's a different feeling around this Cork team under John Cleary? Like, he's got in the management team that he wants. He's Kevin Walsh in there. He's got Rob Heffernan helping him out. He's been able to bring in players that he's wanted to bring in, like we mentioned there earlier, the likes of Brian O'Driscoll were redeemed, Tom Clancy, Meehan's back in, Daniel O'Mahony is there as well. So very much John Cleary has as much as is possible the squad that he wants. So should we allow ourselves to get a little bit excited? Tempered by the fact, again, it's just the McGrath Cup, but there does seem to be green shoots in January.
Yeah, I think you said a little bit excited. I wouldn't overly do it again, because it has to be tempered a little bit, because you mentioned it's the McGrath Cup. They're coming from a low base, and they're coming from years of these false dawns where they're up for a little bit, but they'll go back 2 steps again, So it has to be massively tempered. But as you said, like, number one is they have most of the best players playing for them now. There's probably still one or two out there in the county that would probably add one or two, extra options to Cork, but they have at least most of the best players playing now with them. They clearly look like they have very, very good management and a set of players who are willing to play for that management. And they look like they're a team that work really, really hard and are committed. And that's not just hearing anything back or anything. That's the evidence that you see on the field, and that they're working hard for each other, and they look like they are committed, So, but I would be, very, very cautious because, as I said, at the end of the day, you're probably in Munster just comparing yourself to Kerry, and Kerry are still light years ahead of us. They were very worthy All-Ireland champions last year. I would say, this year, to get close to them again, Kerry will probably have to have an off day, and Cork will have to keep improving and get closer. But any team doesn't suddenly, because of 2 or 3 good winter months of training or whatever, suddenly become title contenders or anything. So it has to be massively cautious optimism, I think, because any team that develops, it takes a couple of years, and it's not even going to be next year. It's probably the year after. They hopefully will get very close, challenging for Munster titles and maybe get into position of quarterfinals and semi-finals of All Irelands and things like that.
Haulie, any areas or reasons that we should be concerned this Cork team, or any areas that concern you about this Cork team and where they are right now?
Well, I'm only taking it from this time last year, and the amount of improvement that has come. The amount of improvement is huge, but we won't really know where these teams' weaknesses are until, as I said, we'll be into the third game of the league, because they had it easy against Kerry. Obviously, Kerry had nothing done, had a whole pile of interest in the game. Clare and Limerick weren't playing as well as the Clare and Limerick that we saw last season. Cork looked strong all over the field. There probably are a couple of positions up for grabs, and there will be a lot of competition for those positions. But look, at the moment, there's still work to be done. They're going to find out more about themselves when it comes to the Meath game and the Kildare game. But as Diarmuid says, there's cause for optimism. They look mentally in a very, very good place. Especially last night there, they went well ahead of Limerick, conceded a goal, but it didn't faze them. They went in at half-time, came out, got the first 5 or 6 points of the second half, Grand conceded a goal again, but then finished strong. So you'll be hoping that the winning and that improved mental fortitude, let's say, when the pressure really comes on, that's developing also, and that will, that will come to fruition against the better teams.
All right, but the final question to both of you: which Cork player are you most looking forward to watching in the upcoming Division 2 league? Diarmuid, you can go first.
Probably Sean Meehan again. I know he spent a lot of last year injured, but he, everyone knows that he marked Clifford, I think, a couple of times. Did he keep him scoreless at least once, if not, and maybe it was at a point the other time or something like that. But he's a player that's incredibly exciting, and I think he's a quality player, as a player that would get in absolutely any county or any county team around the country. I suppose the big question is, where do you play him from a Cork point of view? Will they be kind of preparing him for the full back line to mark Clifford, or would he be in his probably more natural position at centre back where he's able to maraud forward, But very similar, I think, in ways, and maybe this is a bit premature to be comparing him to, but very similar to the way Canty used to play for Cork, where they weren't sure would they play Canty at midfield, full back, marking, the likes of Donaghy or Tommy Walsh or any of these, or would they play him at centre back where he was obviously outstanding as well. So I think that's probably, maybe it'll be horses for courses depending on the games, that they're playing, where they play Sean Meehan. But I think he's a very, very exciting player, young player, but bags of ability, and looks like to have the right temperament as well, so he's definitely a player I look forward to seeing.
Same question to you, Haulie.
I'm looking forward to seeing what Conor Corbett is going to do, because obviously he's been out injured. He was a fantastic underage player for Cork. He's a big, powerful unit now. Obviously, he's gymmed out a lot while he was out injured. Played well against Kerry. This fella looked like he could be the next best thing before he got injured. And I'd be hoping that he gets lots of game time over the league, and that we can see where he can go, because he was a fantastic wing forward in that under-20 and minor team that back along the years. And there is a wing forward position there up for grabs, and he's a big, powerful unit, great kicker, great score taker. And look, he's a new guy, and we need more and the best of our underage talent coming through and making a mark at senior.
Brilliant stuff, lads. Hopefully the next time we're talking, Cork will be flying high in Division 2.
Okay, Kieran, in a moment, we're going to preview this Thursday's Southern Star sports section. But before we do, I just want to draw listeners' attention to two special features that are going to be in this week's Southern Star. First up, it's the 28-page magazine, which will reveal the finalists in the 2022 edition of the West Cork Business and Tourism Awards. So if you know anyone who put themselves forward, or if you yourself had put yourselves forward for this awards series, all will be revealed in Thursday's Southern Star. So if you're interested in the worlds of West Cork business or tourism, this is also an interesting read for you. 28 pages, free with Thursday's Southern Star. We also have a very special recruitment feature in Thursday's paper. So if you're looking for a new job or a change of career, or you're looking to recruit some able people for your business, don't miss Thursday's recruitment feature. So along with the sport, the main section, and our life and community pages, this is going to be a bulky edition of the Southern Star, and it's all available for less than €2 when you subscribe online at www.subscribe.southernstar.ie. So there's the pitch for Thursday's Southern Star from one perspective. Kieran's going to give you the much more important perspective, though, and that's the West Cork sporting perspective.
We all know the podcast listeners, they only buy the Star for the sport, Jack. So let's tell them what's in on Thursday. So there's it's the biggest sports section of the year so far. So that gives you an indicator that there's a lot packed in there. I have a long read on John Cleary, the Cork senior football manager. So what I've done, I've spoken to people who know him the best. His sister, Nada Cleary, the nine-time Cork All-Ireland winner, James McCarthy, the Castlehaven manager, who knows Cleary well. They worked together with many Haven teams over the years. Mark Collins, who worked with John, the Cork under 21s way back when, and obviously with Castlehaven as well, and also Brian Hurley, the Cork senior football captain, just to find out what makes John Cleary tick and why players and everyone has so much respect for the man, and just get their thoughts on how they think that John will do as Cork senior football manager. So that's a nice deep read for people to sink their teeth into ahead of the league throw-in this weekend. So we also have obviously loads of GA insider, including the Cork hurlers won the Munster Senior Hurling League final against Tipperary. So we talked to Pat Ryan about that. Also, it wasn't a great week for the West Cork colleges in the Cornivery. Clonakilty and Skibbereen both brought out reports and reaction from that. Going back through the paper, we have a lovely piece on Clonakilty United. They're a new soccer team in the West Cork League this year. They're in the championship. They won the Beamish Cup last weekend. John McCarthy spoke to their manager just about the team. And it's actually quite an interesting read, because this team is very much about mental health and getting young fellas playing football and getting them out there. So it's a really good read. And I didn't realise that was the reason this Clonakilty United team came about. So they're sponsored by Movember, Dave the Moustache in their jerseys. It's just a really interesting story. So that's worth checking out. We also have all the news from the first round of the Beamish Cup, all the latest rugby news too. And we also have the Ethan Bouchard interview that I promised in last week's Southern Star, but I held off till this week because I was waiting on the photos, and the photos make this. I couldn't put in a story of Ethan Bouchard without seeing him in skis and so on. So we have that story, and he's the young American skier from Rhode Island who has very strong links to West Cork in Skibbereen and Bantry, and he's competing at the European Youth Olympic Festival in Italy this week. So we have that and a lot more in Thursday Southern Star.
Yeah, and as I alluded to earlier, if you can't make it to the shops, you can subscribe online for less than €2 per week. As I mentioned, it's www.subscribe.southernstar.ie. Thanks for listening to this week's Star Sport podcast, and thanks as well to our producer, Dylan Mangan. If you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Slán Tamil.